Peter, good morning.
Good morning. How are you, David?
Yeah, I'm doing good, mate. I'm doing good. Adjusting to this new reality.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's for me, it's the third week. With the third week into this working from home structure, this disruption. Yeah, I had a couple of wobbly moments the last week, but this week has sort of gone back to my first week's, a bit more routine, a bit more focus. So yeah,
All right, well,
interesting times.
let's dig into all of those wobbly moments. Before we do that, would you mind introducing yourself a little bit?
Sure. So I am the managing director and founder of a company called Metamorph Consulting, and Metamorph was sort of created in the case of really wanting to help companies transform their HR to be strategic business partners. So I feel like it's a really exciting space to be in. It's the best place for me personally, for upside potential for companies wanting to grow. So we do that through two things. One is through the recruitment of HR leaders in Thailand and Southeast Asia, and also through consulting companies on existing HR processes, talent acquisition processes, and how to optimize that sort of stuff.
Okay, well, that was the main reason that I wanted to chat to you today, is because I know that you're already ahead of the curve when it comes to digital transformation in this industry. You've got a lot of good ideas and interesting approaches that I'm not seeing other HR companies take. So I'm looking forward to discussing that with you. But before we get into all that, could you talk to me a little bit about how is your business? How are you responding to the pandemic?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a good question, a bit of a difficult question, because we're a new company, sort of only been going for less than 6 months. So obviously, when you're a small company, as you've sort of known from your past as well, is that one day can be amazing and a game changer, and another day could be equally painful as well. So it's difficult to gauge. I mean, the other thing to say, I suppose, is if you are a small company which you can sort of be a bit more nimble and agile and lean, versus maybe a medium-sized company that might feel things like this more. So it's difficult to gauge. I think I'm lucky in the sense that some of the clients I'm working with have not put roles on hold because they're critical positions. Basically, they need to hire. They need a new HR director or something like that. But at the same time, no, I'm not getting lots of phone calls and things like that. So email's gone a bit quiet. So I think April's looking quite slow.
What about dealing with your team? Have you discovered any new best practice techniques during this time?
Well, I've got a small team anyway, so we have like 4 people. So actually, even before this, I've been trying to practice the idea of remote working and stuff. I mean, I have 2 people who work remotely anyway. I think they've been in the office once, and then myself and one of my colleagues. Yeah, we go into the office pretty much every day. But it's good that we're talking about this sort of idea of remote working and stuff, because we've had the conversation before about it. Is that prior to this, it was a choice for me to walk into the office or work from home or work in a coffee shop. And I've sort of really been reading into this activity-based working. I sort of believe in that. I think that is the future. So I've been doing that anyway. So, but obviously what's happened is now there is no choice. It's like, no, you have to work from home. And not only that, I have to work from my bedroom. So I'm in my bedroom. I've got my door locked. My 2-year-old can't come in. And then in the morning, the sun moves to the other side of the building, and it gets so hot coming in here. So I have to move to the dining area. So that's the new way of work for me.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk to you a little bit later on about how you see the world after COVID. But before we get into that, you mentioned it was a bit of a slow time in recruitment. So we work with clients from all sectors. It's been a mixed response. Like hospitality is obviously suffering a lot right now, but other industries that it's not really focusing on sales so much, but professional service companies are using this time to educate, because there's a lot of legal and financial implications of this. So it's actually a pretty good time for companies that are focusing purely on thought leadership. So for us, the business, it's been affected, but it's more things have moved. There's more website development, less social media, more content writing, less video production. How has the recruitment industry been affected by this?
Yeah, look, I mean, like I said before, I think, for me as a small company, I don't need as great deal of I don't need a huge volume. So because I'm very niche in the sense that we're only recruiting within the HR space, that's either huge companies that have got big HR workforce with key managers, HR managers, or it's small companies who are who sort of replacing the HR director. But talking to other recruiters, other leaders in the space, bit of a mixed bag, I think. Yeah. So some people, it's difficult to gauge, right? So definitely nobody's jumping up and down, cracking bottles of champagne open for sure. but basically, some people are hitting the numbers from what I can hear. People are, because obviously people are already in projects already, so they're in the process. Some things have been put on hold, but they're still in the process. Whereas I think people are more worried about what happens next. Maybe the level of the number of jobs has been decreased. People are not people are putting things on hold now for sure. So I think it'll be an interesting conversation in like the end of this month, or even beyond that, because I think it's going to go on longer than this.
Yeah, well, hopefully not, but yeah, I think you're probably right. So the main reason I wanted to speak to you today is because we've had a few chats offline about your approach to recruitment in the HR space, and you're incorporating a lot of next generation ideas, digital transformation based ideas using data and tech. Could you tell us a little bit about how you see the industry evolving, how you would have seen it evolving anyway, and how that may be sped up by the present situation?
Yeah, I think it's a good way of putting it, what you just said, because I think what we're seeing is what I was going to predict, or what will happen anyway. It's just that it takes sort of an unusual, crazy type situation to bring forward new changes and innovation, right? So I think the recruitment market, as for maybe the last 10 years or so, has reached a point where globally it's arguably it's saturated. There's a lot of we've gone through the stage of specialists into micro specialists. Where do you go from there? The big companies are not sort of are using their globalization to win, to nurture clients globally, and then the small niche companies who've been around for a long time and have got special relationships probably are doing well. And then the rest of the bunch, and I include myself in the middle bunch as a new company, is what are we going to do? How do we? Is it a race to the bottom, or have we got to do something to innovate? So I think some of these companies will disappear during this period, and then other companies will focus on adding value, basically, and that will be through probably a number of different things. But from my point of view, I think it's going to be trying to focus on giving value through what I'd call an evidence-based hiring platform, or an evidence-based solution, where we're incorporating behavioral science, we've got incorporating data to help make predict better fit.
I think that's really important. We're only a few years old, but our hiring rate is not great. The success rate it's hit and miss. You can never really tell from an interview how good somebody actually is on the job. So I like what you're saying about evidence-based. If you can get a deeper sense of their character, their personal fit, that will definitely help to understand the culture better. So I see a great business here for you in the future, in the sense that it's not just calling a candidate and placing them, but it's all of the other services that go along with that. So I think you're way ahead of the curve here. So I think you'll be well positioned to grow once this is all over.
Yeah, look, I mean, yeah, I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, and we were sort of talking about it, and how how has your business evolved over the last 10 years? You know, has it evolved at all? And most people are going to say yes, right? It's, you know, we've incorporated this, we're changing this. And then you say, well, you know, how has your recruitment process evolved? And you find out, well, no, it's not evolved at all. You're still writing these not particularly informative job descriptions, and then we're still interviewing people, and if we like them because of gut, we hire them. So why is the recruitment process not evolved when your business has evolved and technology is involved? And the fact is recruitment process is evolving. There are lots of cool stuff out there. A lot of companies doing a lot of things that can essentially take the guesswork out of it and start using science to help you predict better fit and increase your retention rate.
Okay, well, looking forward to working with you on some of those recruitment projects in the future.
Come on then, give me some business.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of cool stuff going to happen in the industry, but also in the wider world as a result of the present COVID situation. I think we were already in a phase of digital transformation. I think some of the predictions about what's going to happen next are a bit hyperbolic. I don't think the whole world's going to be working from home as of mid-year, but things will change. Do you have any predictions about how you think the business world or society at large is going to change as a result of this present situation?
Yes, it's a good question. I think, look, I think it's going to change, but I don't think it's not just going to, you know, once we resume to normality, whatever that is. Maybe we will never resume to normality. Maybe this is the new norm, but it's not just going to suddenly change instantly, right? I would think probably things will resume back to normal in the short term, but basically just because people want to get back to doing things and they need to get back into the office and all that sort of stuff. But then within, I don't know, 3 months, 6 months, a year, people will then companies and leaders are going to start to go, well, okay, well, you know, how can we use everything that we've just had and learn from in this situation to make the workplace a better place to work in, or to make how people do work more enjoyable for them. And, you know, some people are going to, because there's no doubt, like some people are going to come, you know, there are going to be some amazing top performers in companies that when things resume back to normal, they might not want to go back into the office because they've enjoyed working from home. They get closer to their family. They don't spend money wasting time traveling. They can do really well on the technology that they use, and they just don't need to do that. But they might be forced to do it because that's the process or the rule book. And then what happens when the competitor says, well, hold on, we are flexible. You can do whatever you want. They're going to lose talent to the competitors because they're not going to be innovative. So I think that's what will change. But in terms of you know, the whole way of working changing, and you know, everybody now working from home, that's ridiculous. It's not practical, is it? I mean, also, you know, every different industry is different. Every different function is different. You can't have. What about all the factory workers? How do they work? And all the leaders, and you know, so there is some, and unlike maybe, you know, a creative environment like yourself, right? You need in some spaces, I guess, from your point of view, you probably need that sort of quiet area to concentrate on something. But at the same time, most of the time, you know, you're bouncing ideas off each other, so it's impossible to work from home. Although that said, I don't want to contradict myself, but Zoom, you see a lot of these things now on LinkedIn, right? Zoom, all these like different faces everywhere, and you know, you do sort of build relationships with people that way as well. But there's nothing like a face-to-face. Let's face it.
Yeah, I think there'll be an evolution. I don't think there'll be a revolution. I think for some meetings, like if I have to meet the boss of a big Thai company, it's not going to be on Zoom for sure. It's going to be in a nice suit and tie and handing the business card over properly, and those kind of human interactions are still essential. But for a quick catch up with somebody, for a weekly check-in, this is much better than the hour travel you would need. So it's going to be good to add these technologies to our armory. I like what you're saying also about the competitiveness of the companies. We, as a company, because the leader is youngish, we've always tried to be a fun place to be. We were in the process of building a whole nother side of our office before this happened, which was just dedicated to play. So video production space, hangout room, movie space for the team. So to make it feel like a homely, fun environment as a differentiation point. What we have to do, I guess, now as businesses is compete with home. So you mentioned about being closer to the family, and I think people have been surprised by this, actually. I think intuitively everyone thought that working from home, you can focus more, maybe you can be with your family and your dog, but the reality for many people has been that they can't concentrate because even well-meaning family members are a distraction. Your beautiful niece and nephew who you adore when you see them at the weekend are annoying when you have to edit a document, or your wonderful cat is great until it's running across your computer during a Skype call. So I think it's been good for us to do this little social experiment, and things will change. But I think speculation about the end of the office is presumptuous. Although we need to be aware now of things like this that can shake business models. But I don't see a revolution. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, we're sort of learning by doing, aren't we? We've been thinking about this, the future of work and what it looks like and the way of work. I mean, I was reading something the other day of this architecture company, and they posted something about how COVID-19 is going to affect the future of work. But they were taking it from the space of what it looks like in a working environment. And they're all now thinking, well, hold on, we need to rearrange stuff to make it more homely, maybe, or stuff like that. And like I said at the beginning, this sort of concept of activity-based working, where if you need to pitch to a client, then you do probably need to be in the boardroom. But at the same time, if you need some quiet time to sort of create some content or something, you might be better suited to sit in a coffee shop or working from home. So that's sort of how I take my approach to work. Is where's the best? Where can I get the maximum output in terms of the place I want to be? So I think it'll just once we have the choice, people will start to leaders, much more clever people than me, will start to figure out how to manage that situation. And at the minute, it's like we're just jumping out an aeroplane. We've got 32,000 feet up in the air, and we're just trying to figure it out before we hit to the bottom, right? So yeah, I think it's really good times. It's exciting times. But I think, going back to what you just said, I think it's the choice that's the big thing. I think at the minute, I quite enjoy sitting in a coffee shop and doing some work if I'm like thinking about some content for my company or something. Or at the same time, I like to walk into the office and sit and look outside the window or be in my actual room. At the minute, you don't have that choice. So I think that's what the challenge is. Once you give people the choice, then they can maybe figure it out what's best for them.
I've heard some thought leaders talk about digital transformation as a risk to employees, and I guess to some degree automation is. But for us as a company, this, as you said, jumping out of a plane at high speed, jumping in the deep end, it's forced us to build processes that can give some idea of what's happening inside the company while we're remote. Having those systems in place, having good time tracking, good forecasting, good regular meetings, having a clear chain of command where everyone knows what's happening, having that in place when we go back will mean that we'll know clearly, okay, this person's got a huge workload this week. We can't give them anything else. If they need to be remote, let them be remote. Or this team's just shot a big film on site. We need the editor to be remote so we can get it delivered in 3 days. Like that level of access to the work on hand and the knowledge and the time tracking actually is going to give a lot more freedom to the staff, because it's not a case of I just need to go home and do some work. It's like, here's the tangible information that's needed. Here's all of the data that you could need to make a decision. Please grant me the permission. So it's going to lead to better decision making, I think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think I think what you're doing is the right thing to do, because the idea that anyone who's thinking, okay, now you have to you have to come to the office and you have to work from 9 till 5, and and you can go home. And if they think, people who it's like people who come late, like people come to late at 9:30 or something. When it comes to that many hours, 8-9 hours or whatever they work, how much are they actually producing during that period of time? It's not 8 or 9 hours anyway. So you want to create an environment where people will produce the maximum amount of production as possible. And also it's proven that happy workforce and engaged workforce is a more productive workforce as well. So companies who are thinking like that are going to win, and companies that are still thinking in the 20th century are going to slowly disappear. What we've got to get right is obviously people who maybe work too much, and that sounds a bit cheesy or wishy-washy or something, but what I mean is, like, when you do work, certainly from my point of view, is when you're working from home at the moment, there isn't the sort of a set time. It's unless you're trying to stick to the routine, but you end up working through the weekend, working in late into the night. I'm quite happy with doing that, but I mean, if there'll be people out there that will be under deadlines from their bosses and stuff like that. If there's not a rule book in place in terms of what is the do's and don'ts for working flexibly.
Yeah, so I guess I like what you said there. For us at Lexicon, we're still a bit strict on the time. We say you have to be there before 10 and then be present for 8 hours. That might not be the way to go. It might be better to say, here's 7 hours of tasks for you to pick from during the day. Pick whichever 7 you want, do them wherever you want, as long as they get done. And then the task is measured rather than the time on hand. It's a great point. I like that.
Yeah, and I'm not perfect either. I mean, I'm still trying to. I don't know what the optimum thing is. I try to do stuff. I mean, at the moment I've got a very strict sort of like 1.5 hour slots and what I need to get done. I read the what is it? The executive I've lost the book now, but the Peter Drucker book, something executive. You'll have to dig that one out. But he sort of says that optimized way is to get something done is 1.5 hours basically. So he's like a management guru, right? He said that anything longer than that, you lose focus. Anything shorter, you don't get enough done. So I've been trying to do that. But you don't move from 1.5 hour slots to the next 1.5 hour slot, and that's what I'm getting confused, because by the end of the day I'm like, shit, I've only done the first 2, and then it's going back to like what Tim Ferriss said. He said one of the best ways what he does is he goes when he plans his day, he goes writes down all the list of things he needs to do, and then he goes, which are the 2 most important things I have to get done today? What does it look like? And as long as he gets those 2 done, he's happy on his day. So, try these different things, but yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah, I always find it difficult to make those lists, because they're as a leader of a company, the list is endless. Like, if you actually wrote down all the things you have to do, the list would be longer than a house. But I like that Tim Ferriss approach. It's similar to Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy? He's this kind of really old guy now. He's probably in his 80s, but he's a guru from the old days of playing tapes, the kind of motivational tapes. He has a book called Eat That Frog, which is a really great book on productivity. It's the same kind of thing. Write down all the things you need to do. Pick the one you don't want to do the most, like the nastiest one that's been there forever. Just get it done in the morning, and then you've got the hardest thing done. The rest of the day is going to be easier. So I think it's definitely key for us as leaders to feel a sense of achievement, because it's that endless to-do list. If we can at least see at the end of the day, as you said, that, okay, these 2 big things are done, we're making progress. It's really important.
Well, it's an interesting concept, because obviously the one that you least want to do is the one that you need to do the most, right? In many cases,
usually.
So it's like getting comfortable being uncomfortable is another thing that I quite like the idea of. But yeah, lots to do.
So you said you're in your 3rd week now of work from home.
Yeah,
and there's been an evolution of the experience. You mentioned it was very different last week than this week. What are you feeling?
Well, like the first week was, it's a novelty, isn't it? It's like, we're working from home. Just got to get stuff done and get on with it, you know, and it flies by, right? Suddenly it's Friday. Then like you think, okay, well, and how do I, you know, next week, how do I have a better week? You know, what can I do to be better? And sort of trying these different things that we've just been talking about, be better prepared. But I think honestly, the real challenge was it was the working environment and trying to deal with that. Really, I think is that I'm going specifically into my particular problem, which is, like I just said earlier, the conversation has been in the bedroom. This is really good. It's nice and cold and cool. My aircon's good. But then when you switch to like after 1 o'clock or something and the sun's shining in here, I've tried it with the curtains closed. It's suddenly you've got artificial light dark and it's like, doesn't feel good. Then like, okay, well, the dining room, but my son's like running around like a crazy man. Then you lose your productivity there. So then it's like, okay, how do I need to get the most out of the morning, right? So sort of that's been the challenge. But yeah, so last week was like, Friday was like, you're starting to go, I need to get out. Because that's the other thing is if you're in a condo and you don't get out. For me, like I've talked to quite a few people in the last few weeks. So like some people I literally go out once a week. I've been talking to people. It's like most of them, to be fair, have got most of them have got a house. So I think they're probably walking into the garden or something. But I'm like in a condo. And it's it's a decent condo, two bedrooms or whatever. But I need to get out and have a walk to Foodland or just walk out of the condo or something. But if I don't do that for 2 days, then it's like you start getting a bit twitchy. So
yeah, we're not meant to be
it's interesting
indoors all the time.
We're not meant to be cooped up, are we? Nobody, no mammal is it? No, nobody's meant to be cooped up.
No,
so,
all right,
it's a challenge. I think so. That this week's been good. Next week, I need to make it even better.
I think definitely the productivity thing is the key from being at home, because there's the muscle memory naturally of when you're on the sofa is not a place to be productive. It's a place to slob out. So trying to reprogram your body to adjust to the new environment is key. One thing that I found to be essential is Scott Bond 1999 Essential Mix from Gatecrasher. I listen to that almost on repeat all day. It's very calming, and there's not many lyrics in it. It just kind of like gives a metronome to the brain to like focus on other stuff. So that's my number one essential for work from home.
What's the science behind that then? I've seen something last week about that. It's like the idea, like some people using music in the background. There's like an infogram or whatever they're called, sort of showing different ways to be more productive. And music was one of them. And I've never used music when I'm working. But what's behind that then? Does it work?
Well, I'm not the scientist of the trance music, but my guess is that one of the reasons that trance music works in that way is because it's kind of consistent for 2 hours. Like the BPM is consistent, the sound is consistent. If it was a different track every 3 minutes, there would be a distraction. If there were lyrics, the lyrics would get in your head. It's almost like white noise in a way. It's just something to, I don't know, maybe we have a limited amount of information we can process at one time. And kind of the distraction bit is covered by the music, and the other bit is where you can focus. So it kind of, for me at least, it allows me to concentrate. I think some people don't enjoy music, but classical music, I know some of the writers at the office put that on when they're going to focus. Give it a go. Let me know.
Yeah. Well, it's true. I mean, I must admit, maybe that's why I like working in a coffee shop if I'm writing some things, because I can, you get a nice comfortable seat, coffee shop. I don't tend to get distracted, and you sort of, I know you look up sometimes and you see things, but it sort of almost feels like it helps with the creative process rather than being sat in here. I wouldn't consider writing in here now because it's too dull and sort of not much happening. But
yeah, I think some of the best works of literature in history have been written in tiny little rooms, though. So usually a lot more squalor than this, though. I think we're pretty decadent living in Bangkok. But so for me, Scott Bond is my essential work from home tip. What are your 3 essentials? What are the 3 things you need to get through it?
Is this like to get through this situation, or what?
So what do you need at home to do your job? Is it a ready supply of fruit? Is it a particular app? Is it the 5 p.m. gin and tonic? What are the things that you need during this time?
I think, I don't know. I mean, I've got a route. There's a pretty much a routine going. I mean, coffee is probably number one. So, you know, I pretty much have a coffee first thing in the morning, then one about 11 o'clock, and then I'll have another one at 3 p.m. pretty much every day. So it's like, these are my little sort of caffeine hits of stress. So I've really been stocking up on Nespresso. So that's one. Yeah, I mean, the other thing, the other day I ordered from online the training mat, and that came last week, but I've not used it yet. So the idea is try to do a bit of exercise once a day, or maybe once every other day, something like that. Beer, look, I actually had already stocked up on beer 2 weeks ago because I predicted this would happen. So I'm stocked up for a couple of months on beer. So come 5:30, 6 o'clock, I crack open a bottle of Heineken. Look, I mean, the other thing is obviously the internet, isn't it? I mean, I've been frustrated occasionally because of poor internet quality, something that you expect, take for granted. But obviously, there seems to be, for most of the time it's all right, but there is that challenge occasionally. Obviously, everybody's online trying to do the same thing. So, yeah, that's it, probably.
All right. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're a busy man. So if people want to get in touch with you, either to look for HR recruitment or to listen to your own new podcast that's coming up, how should they get hold of you?
Yeah. LinkedIn I'm pretty much on LinkedIn every day. So yeah, LinkedIn. Website is metamorphtalent.com. You can go on there. You can see what we do as a business, and also as HR candidates. They want to get the newsletters and job alerts and stuff like that. And the podcast, that will be coming out on next week, actually, on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. So yeah, I'm sure we'll find the link sometime.
Does it have a name?
Metamorph YouTube channel, something like that.
Does the podcast have a name yet?
The HR Futurist podcast.
Wow.
Yeah, the HR Futurist podcast.
All right, I like it. Yeah. I'll be subscribing.
So I'll have to get you on because I need to get you on because the whole point of HR and the future of HR is digital, right? So HR need to be digital marketers. They need to be data driven, and they need to be business focused. So having somebody like you to advise, sort of like digital marketing and employer branding is very similar, right? So yeah, it'd be good for you to come on and advise my audience, which are mainly HR people, how to grow their business and attract talent through marketing.
My pleasure, mate. Looking forward to it.
Get it on there. Get it
All
done.
right. Speak to you then. Cheers.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Stay safe.